Thank you so much. And once again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Fiore. I am the director of the Nonprofit Help Desk and thrilled to welcome you to yet another fantastic topic on capacity building. Before I hand it over to the brilliant Krishna Powell, I want to tell you a little bit about the Help Desk. Krishna, if you wouldn't mind advancing a slide for me. We are here to help nonprofits. We offer free live workshops like you are here and watching right now. We have our archive of our past workshops at our website at nphd.org. We have a growing LinkedIn community. We want conversation to be happening there. We're trying to promote and post information that will be valuable to the community. So please do look up the Nonprofit Help Desk on LinkedIn. And of course, we offer free expert support. Krishna, if you wouldn't mind advancing once more. What you're going to see on your screen is an example of the various types of workshops. These are all from the past, so you can find all of these in the archive. We have a combination of workshops that focus on capacity building, everything from HR to budgeting to legal to board development to marketing. All of those are topics that we're going to be covering this coming year during this fiscal year. We're thrilled about that. And then, as always, we have a wide array of workshops specifically focused on applying for discretionary funding, applying for and obtaining, and how to access your discretionary funding. So, we need to take that off. My apologies. Ina, can we just remove this person? Thank you. My apologies about that. Um, we are also a help desk, and we are here for you on all sorts of topics that you may find valuable. If you are interested in one-on-one expert support from our help desk, all you have to do is fill out a form at NPHD. We want to know what help we can provide you. And that's all I have to say. Again, Krishna, our delight to welcome you to the webinars. I'll let you do a self-introduction. Thank you again, and thanks everyone for being here.
Well, thank you so very much for having me. It is definitely my pleasure. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to return. Some of you may remember me from last year. Well, I am back, and this time we have an even, I would even say a better topic, an even more exciting topic, more relevant, especially now with everything that's going on. But just to give you an idea as to who I am, my name is Krishna Powell. I am fondly referred to as your multi-gen leader. I have spent more than 30 years in human resources. Matter of fact, I have my own organization called HR for Your Small Biz, where we provide not only HR support but leadership and professional development. My primary focus and expertise is with regards to family-owned businesses and nonprofits. So I have the pleasure of working with nonprofits, not only here in the state of New Jersey, but literally throughout the U.S. I've worked with the Girl Scouts in California, the Boy Scouts, and various other nonprofit agencies such as Rescue Mission, etc. And so that just gives you a glimpse as to who I am. The reason why I wanted to do this workshop and the reason why it is so relevant right now is, as you know, everyone's stressed. I won't say everyone, but a lot of people are stressed. Between layoffs taking place, funding being cut for nonprofit agencies, for government agencies, in addition to people who depend on government assistance. As you know, these are definitely challenging times. And as a leader, it is not easy, even for yourself. And so, with that being said, I created this workshop to, in hopes of providing you with additional services and support as you go about leading your workforce, helping them to understand how to navigate the challenges that lie ahead. So, we're going to talk about it for our agenda today. We're going to look at and really explore how leaders can use both emotional and generational intelligence to prevent burnout, to strengthen morale, and just sustain impact in your organization, across generations within your nonprofit. And so that's what we'll be talking about. The reason why I'm not just focusing on just emotional intelligence and and talking about generational intelligence, I'm going to share with you. And I hope by the end of this, our time together, you will understand. For many of you, this workshop is going to be just what you need. You're like, hey, Krishna, this is perfect. For some of you, after I get done, you're going to be like, I need more. I want to talk to you. And don't worry, I will be available. But let me just give you a disclaimer. I am a Jersey girl. What does that mean? I am born and raised in Jersey. That means don't ask me any questions you don't want to hear the truth to. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be professional with you, but I'm a Jersey girl, so I am going to be very truthful with you. um, I think the other reason why you'll find this workshop to be different is because of the fact that I'm going to be sharing with you best practices for things that I have learned literally all around the world. I have had the pleasure of doing workshops and meeting with organizations in China, France, and Singapore. But like I said, not only that, but just really working with nonprofits throughout the US. So I'm going to be able to share with you firsthand what I have seen worked with other organizations, what worked well for them and what didn't work so well. And if you have any tips, ideas, suggestions, by all means, use the chat. I will be taking questions. So as I go along, please ask me anything that you want. I will probably do the questions towards the end. And the only reason why I'm doing it that way is because I have a lot of information for you today that I want to make sure that I get through, to make sure that you understand and you have all the resources and support and the guidance that you need after you get off of this webinar. So let's get started. Just know I'm holding space for you. When we talk about burnout, when we talk about stress, when we talk about what's going on, it's difficult. And as I'm holding space for you, I want you to take the opportunity to think for yourself, what additional support and services could you use to make your life easier? As leaders, we're constantly taking care of other people. What you will see is that during this workshop, it's not just about you taking care of your staff and preventing burnout with your staff. I'm also going to be sharing with you suggestions for what are some things that you can do for yourself. It's very similar, and the reason why I did it that way because I believe in that saying. When they're married and you have kids, and they say, "If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy." Well, I think the same thing happens when you're a leader. When you are a leader, if you aren't happy, your staff isn't going to be happy. And so you are just as important as the staff you support. And I want to make sure, again, that you have some best practices and some tools that you can try out as you go about navigating, again, all the changes that are taking place. So, why did I do this? Because I'm seeing people, like I said, beyond stress. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your religion, it doesn't matter your culture. What's taking place in our society from an economic standpoint, from a government standpoint, it's impacting everyone. Um, be it you have more work because you had now are operating on a shoestring budget because you have less staff, you're just expected to do more with less, and that was all. Things were already tight after the pandemic, but the recent changes have definitely made it for some much more difficult. And so I really wanted to again just supply you with some ideas and some tools that you can use. So let's talk about it. What First of all, let's talk about what burnout isn't. Burnout isn't just simple tiredness. A lot of times people think I'm tired, that means I'm burned out. Not if it means that, hey, if with a little weekend rest, you're back to normal. That's not burnout. Burnout, just to also be clear, it is not a weakness. It's not a bad attitude. It's truly a physiological as well as a psychological response to chronic overload. It's also not failure. A lot of times, and really, let's be honest, it can sometimes even depend on generations, and we'll talk about that. But depending on how you were raised and your belief, sometimes we look at burnout as being failure. I failed. I'm doing something wrong if I am burned out. That is not the case. Burnout really is a signal that your system, your support structures, it needs repair. And so what we're going to talk about is the recovery and restoration that needs to happen if you or your staff has been suffering from burnout. The what burnout is, if you look according to the World Health Organization, burnout really is characterized as three dimensions. It's exhaustion, cynicism, and a reduced sense of efficacy. Burnout is more again than just exhaustion. It's that chronic state of emotional, physical, and mental fatigue caused by prolonged stress and insufficient recovery. Basically, it emerges when passion and purpose are overwhelmed by pressure. Let me say that again. It emerges when passion and purpose are overwhelmed by pressure. That's really important when you think about those of you and being in the nonprofit, because in nonprofit, passion and purpose is everything. But what happens when it's overwhelmed by pressure? That's when the burnout shows up. So you tag that onto emotional intelligence. Let's talk about what emotional intelligence is. Emotional intelligence is really the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our emotions. Not only our own emotions, but also if you're a leader, you're responsible for, helping others manage their emotions. So you're responsible for helping your staff manage their emotions. You having a high emotional intelligence is how you're going to build trust as a leader. It makes and make even better business decisions. It's the way that you are going to foster collaboration. And true emotional intelligence blends a self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skill. So when you think about all of these things that you're blending, emotional intelligence is not for the faint of heart. It takes work. It takes daily work to be not only to not only be self-aware, but to regulate yourself in the good times and the bad times. Because let's be honest, you're just as human as your employees. You have your good days and your bad days. But when you have the role of a leader, you have even more of a responsibility for regulating yourself, your behavior, and demonstrating empathy because employees are watching you, looking up to you for guidance and direction. And so when I think about emotional intelligence, the thing that I have come to realize after over the years, and you have probably seen this, is that emotional intelligence can also vary by generation. And so generational
Like an
intelligence
org chart?
is very important. When you think about generational intelligence, it's your ability to understand,
Um,
appreciate, and adapt to the experiences and preferences of worldviews of different generations. It's not easy. When you think about it, we're coming in and we're four
no.
generations. We used to be five, but the fifth generation is less than 1% of the workforce. And I'll show you that in a minute. But each generation has been shaped by these unique historical events, cultural influences that is affecting the way they approach work and their interaction with others. Not only that, but if you learn how to manage and again develop your own generational intelligence, you will see within your organization that your employees become more inclusive, more productive, more innovative. That's what happens when you have leaders who are attuned to both their generational intelligence and emotional intelligence. So, when I talk about the generations, I am talking about, for the most part, four generations. We have the silent generation. They're over the age of 80. They're less than 1% of the workforce. Yes, they are still in the workplace, a few of them. And they said, Krishna, I'm staying until I can't stay anymore. This is my family, my kids, my grandkids, everybody's grown, but I have my little part time job I come into. I love what I do, and I'm going to keep on doing it till I can't do it anymore. And that's absolutely fine. Then we have my fabulous baby boomers. They are over the age of 61. Just know they are a vital resource that is beginning to transition out. 10,000 baby boomers a day are eligible for retirement. So, for those of you who are Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Z, that is very important and significant for you. The reason being is that means a lot of institutional knowledge is walking out the door, is leaving out the door. So if you are a millennial manager and you have not had the opportunity to spend time with your baby boomers and those who have come before you, now is the time to do it. And I know, if you're a millennial, if you're a Gen Z, you're like, Krishna, I don't need them. I have the internet, I have Google. Well, let me just say, not everything you need is always on Google. And let's be honest, The baby boomer generation, they're where the knowledge came from a lot of times what you're reading in Google, what you're reading in books. They have the firsthand experience that you need. It's one thing to read about it, it's another thing to spend time with the person who can tell you why it was implemented and the why behind a lot of the things that you see in a nonprofit organization, in the organization that you're in. So if you are a millennial, I cannot stress enough. If you're a Gen Z, I cannot stress enough. And my Gen Xers, you spent time with baby boomers. I'm not going to emphasize it so much with you because you used to working with baby boomers. But those of you who have not spent significant time with your baby boomers, please do so before they transition out. Because like I said, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that you won't find in a book that they have in regards to your organization. What has worked, what hasn't worked, why it hasn't worked, what are the different ways to do things, what are the quickest ways to do things. That's the generation that you need to tap into. And when I say the quickest way to do things, they may not always know the quickest processes, but they know the people and the procedures. And again, the reason why, which is half the battle right there, if you ask me. Not only that, but we have my fabulous Gen Xers. They are those over the age of 55. For Gen Xers, we are now considered the sandwich generation. The reason why we're considered the sandwich generation because we're taking care of our aging parents, but yet we still have young people that we're still responsible for taking care of if we have children or nieces or nephews. And so we're dap smack in the middle of helping out with two different generations. Then we have my millennials. My millennials right now are the largest workforce. Now that won't be for long, so because let me say, Gen Z is hot on your trails. They're going to outnumber you by about 1 to 2 million when they have finally all entered into the workplace. But for my millennials, you are now the largest generation in the workforce. You are now the ones who have stepped into the role of management. There's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, nothing that you can't handle, but just know Gen Z is very much so different from you. When we look at Gen Z, they are those over the age of 13. So when you look right now, they are between the ages of 28 and let's say 18 that have entered into the workplace, 18 and 28. And so we're seeing some challenges with them as well, especially from an emotional intelligence standpoint. And so, again, just be mindful when I'm talking about the generations during this presentation, this is what I'm talking about. That if you do not learn how to navigate them, if you do not learn how to manage them, you're going to not only have conflict, but you're going to have employees who are suffering with burnout. That's why it matters. Think about it. At your nonprofit or any nonprofit, the work is truly mission driven. It's deeply personal. There's a sense of purpose. And while powerful, it can easily turn into overextension or guilt driven work. That's where the burnout starts to show up. And it's different from corporate. If you think about some of the corporate environments, there are some differences and there are some similarities. Let's talk about the similarities. One of the similarities is one, nonprofits depend on the emotional labor. We depend on empathy. You depend on connection to sustain impact. Um, but the biggest thing that when you think about emotional intelligence and generational intelligence is that it protects the people who protect the mission. And so that's why it's so significant when we look at nonprofits. Um, and why generational intelligence, emotional intelligence, and burnout, we need to tackle it early on when we see it. I'll be honest, I've worked in corporate America, various Fortune 100 companies I've had the privilege of working. I told you I've been in human resources for 30 years. But with that being said, I know firsthand that in a corporate environment, burnout is usually fueled by the metrics, fueled by performance pressure, but in nonprofits, it's different. It's, when we look at it, it's born from compassion fatigue and chronic underfunding and doing more with less. That's the huge, huge difference. Not only that, but I told you I'm a Jersey girl, so I told you I'll be honest. In corporate America, in the Fortune 100 companies, they can afford burnout. They can. They have millions of dollars set to the side that they can quickly say, okay, we'll let someone go out on leave for a couple of weeks, and that's no big deal. That's not going to impact us. We can bring in some services real quick. They're just not going to feel it the way you would feel it in nonprofit world. Think about it. If your top performer leaves or goes out on leave for 12 weeks, for 16 weeks, the impact that that would have to your organization. It's a different ball game in nonprofit. My heart goes out to you. That's why I'm doing this workshop, because the struggle, the responsibility, the load that you're carrying is not for the faint of heart. This is why emotional intelligence is so important. It enhances that collaboration, that innovation. But in nonprofits, we need it, you need it, because it ensures trust, retention, and emotional sustainability. You want your employees to be able to be with you for the long haul. And let me say this, when I talk about burnout, of staff, it's not just for staff that you pay for. It's for your unpaid staff, for your volunteers. Your volunteers, as you know, they easily get burned out. And so we have to be very mindful about how we're managing them, how we're communicating with them, how we're sustaining the relationship with them so that we're able to retain them. In a nonprofit world, success depends on emotional connection with donors, with clients, with boards. That's why you need all your staff, paid and unpaid, to not be in the situation of feeling burned out and exhausted. This is why these it is so important to be able to ask yourself the tough questions. As a leader, if you're managing people, if you're a team lead, you need to be asking yourself these questions at least once a quarter. This is how you do a pulse check to see exactly what is going on. Are your people showing up but not connecting? Are they quiet when they used to contribute, especially in meetings? Are small tasks small mistakes, excuse me, becoming common? Do they appear resentful, withdrawn, or not like themselves? There's just subtle cues of disengagement. Look at what's going on during meetings. Are they busy doodling and keeping their head down and acting like they're hoping and praying that you don't even see them in the meeting? Are you noticing that creativity has been reduced, or do they seem more irritable than usual? Excuse me for a second. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Mm, excuse me. Thank you. It's that time of the year for me with the seasons changing. Triggers allergies. So it's a sneeze, cough, sneeze, sneeze, as my family likes to say. So excuse me, everyone. Um, but let's get back to identifying the signs. Sometimes for you, some of the signs are you hearing more sighs and silence or sarcasm rather than laughter lately? Are your people using more sick days? And I want you to notice about these questions. These questions are not focused on um, emotions, it's really focused on the behavior. How are they showing up or not showing up? It's the signs that point to the fatigue that could potentially occur beneath the surface. So, your first key takeaway is, as a leader, just know before performance declines, burnout shows up first. You know, it appears as an emotional distance. You have to look for these signs. So that's why I created this here. I want you to think about increased absenteeism, lack of pleasure in the job. Are they doubting themselves more? Poor internal relationships. Has turnover increased? Are you noticing low morale? These are all the signs of burnout. Not only that, but I told you, you're just as important as your employees. You matter too. What I want you to remember, and it's the saying is true, you can't pour from an empty cup. I know you're like, Krishna, this is what I've always done. I've pressed forward, out of duty, out of purpose. But it's costing you emotionally. And so what I want you to do is also reflect on yourself, that how are you feeling at the end of the day? Are you feeling depleted rather than fulfilled? Have you lost patience or focus? Do you dread work that once inspired you? Like, these are all signs your emotional reserves may be running low as well. And so even for you, recovery isn't indulgence, it is intelligence. That's what you need to remember. You have to take care of yourself too. And so let's talk about this quickly from a generational standpoint. Burnout, like I said, it can look different from a generation standpoint, because when I think about my baby boomers are some of the toughest around. Then when you add to it us, my generation, the Gen Xers, yeah, we can do the sarcasm and the cynicism. Most of us grew up as latchkey kids, but when we think about who we are and how we show up as leaders, our family and how we were raised, our experiences do have an impact on how we are doing the work and how we're showing up for the work and how much we're taking on. Because if you think about it, we were the generation that we were told, stop crying. There's nothing to cry about. Don't be so sensitive. We were also the generation that was told, just suck it up. Just be happy you have a job. Keep your head down and just keep doing the work. And yes, for some of us, it paid off a little bit. We sometimes got promotions, we sometimes got recognition. But we also took on and we're taking on all this work and not thinking about emotionally how we're feeling and what we need to do differently for ourselves to replenish ourselves. So at the end of the day, if we're not careful, we can leave work absolutely exhausted with nothing else left to give, not only to ourselves, but when we get home to our families. And so that's why it's important that we have to take care of you just as much as we take care of your employees. And you're going to hear me say this over and over and over again, because I care about you. You need someone who cares about you to say, you know what, it's okay to pause. It's okay to go, you know what, I need to take a moment, take a step back to replenish myself. Because when we even look from a global standpoint and global engagement, in recent studies, it's showing that engagement is dropping, but it's largely due to leadership burnout. Managers and leaders are depleted. They're guiding others without time to recover themselves. It's called compassion fatigue. That's what you're going through quite often. And declining patience, because think about it, when you're exhausted, you really don't have patience for yourself, let alone someone else. And then our own performance starts to decline. So that's why you, as a leader, if you want to show up for your employees, if you want to prevent them from burning out, we first have to prevent you from burning out as well. And if you are burning out, then we have to figure out, how do we make sure, how do we make sure you're taken care of? And so let's look at that. Let's look and think about, how is it even showing up in ourselves, so that way we know, okay, I may need to step back. I may need to pause. I may need to do some things. First of all, you dealing with and feeling burned out isn't your fault. Just think about it. You're constantly making decisions. You're constantly providing feedback. You're always in crisis management. It is bound to take a toll on you. That's why, when empathy goes unchecked, it does turn into exhaustion, and we have to show empathy for ourselves. That's why restoring balance is so key. It's called, when we look at it, they even have a name for it, the nonprofit burnout cycle. Literally, there is a predictable cycle for burnout in the nonprofit world. First, it's the mission commitment leads to overwork. Then it leads to emotional depletion. Then it leads to us feeling guilty because we're emotionally depleted. And then eventually, what happens is it shows up and it becomes detachment, and we just check out. And that's the human side of us. It doesn't mean you don't care about your organization. It doesn't mean you didn't love what you do, or you don't love what you do. But it does mean that if we're not careful, we'll begin operating on autopilot. We'll show up physically, but not emotionally. And so if you're in this cycle, the good news is it can be broken. It just requires What you're doing today by coming to this workshop is the awareness. It requires rest and permission to restore. When we look at the emotional blind spot in leadership, many leaders believe that the emotions distract you from execution, but that's not true. It really is about when we ignore our emotions, that's not professionalism, it's avoidance. And it becomes, an emotional awareness is not a liability, it's leverage. And I'll tell you, I've been in organizations where, in Fortune 100 companies where they tell you, you check your emotions at the door. But I would dare say that's not possible. You can't be going through stress and all these things and leave it at the door and it doesn't come with you. You bring your whole self to work, good, bad, or indifferent. And so the important thing that we need to do as a leader is figure out how do you leverage the emotions in the workplace, the emotional awareness, so that it doesn't show up as a liability and it does become an asset. And so that's why, again, no longer are we ignoring it. When you're an emotionally aware leaders, you experience higher trust with your employees. They're more engaged with you, and there's greater resilience even under stress. It's not that stress doesn't happen, but there is more of a balancing act and a team effort. And it's also more of a work to figure out, hey, I'm going to figure out how we're going to get out of this. So that's why these things are so important. And that's why the emotions matter now more than ever. Every interaction at work carries an emotional undercurrent. There is no such thing as it not carrying emotional undercurrent. It does. Emotions shape connection, trust, and influence. In an age, especially where AI handles analytics, emotional intelligence, generational intelligence remains one of the few distinctly human advantages in leadership. When we look at the generations and emotional intelligence, what I'm sharing with you, especially those of you who are millennials, you will now have the responsibility of teaching this to your high potential Gen Z employees, those employees who you believe, hey, they are the future of our business, of our organization. You're going to have to teach them more about emotional intelligence. Think about it. The reason why is because in school, in the way systems are set up now, they are relying so heavily on AI that their emotional intelligence is significantly lower than what previous generations have been when they finished high school and college. Not having that human connection and relationship has desensitized them in many ways. And so when they're coming into the workplace, just understand that they are falling short. And so with that being said, also with them falling short, just know it's not your all your responsibility. Let me say that. And it's not all your fault. Sometimes as leaders, we take it on, go, for every emotion I have to manage it, and I'm not doing good at it. I'm suffering too, Krishna. So that means I'm failing as a leader. No, that is not the case. Many of us weren't taught even how to manage our own emotions. Remember, I said, when thinking about it for the way you were raised and generation you were raised in, you were told to suck it up, deal with it. That's not dealing with the emotion. It was just dealing with the mistreatment, dealing with the abuse, being told to be happy you have a job and don't say anything, don't speak up. All those things have impacted our ability to manage emotions. It's just fortunately now there are resources and support, such as myself, such as what many organizations are now offering, which is let's talk about how we can develop our own emotional intelligence, our generational intelligence as leaders. And it's not with techniques, but with curiosity, with courage. And so for yourself, if you want to boost your employees' performance, boost their morale, reduce burnout from happening, you have to look at practicing these four habits to transform your culture. We call it notice, name, need, and normalize. That's what we call it. And let me just talk about why I say it's not your fault, and I have it here twice. Because although it's not your fault, it is your burden. It's not your fault, but there's a difference between it being your burden and your fault. It's your burden because we have employees who need our help more than ever. It's our burden because of the fact that we know just how much greater and better our nonprofit organizations can be if we're able to guide them through the challenges, the storms that lie ahead, if we're able to show them it's not your fault, but it's your burden because you stepped into the role of leader. And let's just say this, if as a leader, you have gone above and beyond, I know. Um, I also want to say that not only with being the leader, it shows that people trust you, but they know that you can help through the difficult times. That's why where for others, it's a too heavy of a burden. For you, it's a burden that you can carry. And using these skills, you'll be able to actually take them off of yourself as well. And so let's just talk about it a little bit. When we look at noticing and naming and need and normalize, just know that each of them is going to help lead to just greater awareness and connection and empathy. Notice what I mean by that is that whole building awareness. Like, notice what your body and energy and team are communicating. How is it that you wake up feeling, or as you're getting ready for work, how are you feeling? Or when you get to work, how do you feel at different times of the day? What is your energy level? What is your team's energy level? It's important to pay attention to that. So, for example, for my own team, I know for my team that between the hours of 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m., 3 p.m., they are at their highest. They are like knocking it out of the park. And then between 2 and 4, they start to slow down. Absolutely fine. The good news is because I am aware of that, I know that, hey, when I have something stressful, difficult, or anything like that, I need to tap into them around that 10, 11 o'clock time frame because that's when they're going to be up alert. The ideas are going to be coming. They're going to be thinking. And I also know around that 2 o'clock time frame, if I can help it, I'm not going to bother them or engage them with heavy thinking work with many demands unless I have to. And I find that by doing it that way, by noticing them and paying attention to my team's rhythm, it allows me that, hey, can I always control at 2 o'clock that I'm not going to need to tap into them? No. But because I'm not doing it on a consistent basis, when that heavy load does drop at 3 p.m., they're pushing through it in a way that they're much more successful than if it happens all the time. And so I also have to be mindful of how am I going to, during that time frame, manage the stress, tension, and fatigue that would occur and make sure that it doesn't lead to withdrawal. And so being mindful of that, being able to go, okay, we're about to hit a real busy season, team. Instead of coming in the morning, I want you guys to come in at 1 o'clock or at 12 o'clock for lunch. And that way I can get an extra hour or two out of them before they start to feel the fatigue. And so again, awareness is just, and that just gives you an example for myself. For you and your business, your department, your organization, it may look different. Your awareness may be key again during certain times of the year. For some people, they know, hey, during holidays or during the start of the year, things are going to be busy, or more busier than normal. That's where the stress kicks in a lot of times. Awareness is that first step in managing, you know, what is going to happen before it actually happens. The next thing we like to do is name the emotion. Now, when we talk about naming, a lot of people think, oh, mad, sad, or glad. No, no, no. I want you to get even more specific. Instead of saying mad, sad, or glad, are you frustrated? Are you anxious or hopeful about ABC, XYZ? Get the clarity. The reason why I say that is you need to make it safe for employees to say what the emotions are that they are feeling and also being able to tell you why. You don't have to assume that you know exactly the reason why. And sometimes it's important for your employees to even be able to say it out loud, for them to go, okay, this is why, I'm short patient and, why I'm abrupt right now. So, precision with emotions, it does enhance your decision making and deepens empathy because when they're able to communicate that to their coworker, then that person is more going to go, you know what, let me help you out a little bit more. I know this, you're feeling discouraged about your project and not meeting your deadline. Let me help you. I think with my assistance, we can get it done together. It's those things. Also, by naming it, excuse me, you invite a deeper connection. One of the go-tos when I ask people, excuse me, how are they checking in with their employees? Excuse me. They go, "How are you?" I ask my employees every morning how they doing. They tell me they're fine. I would dare ask you to go deeper. So, for example, when they say, "How are you?" instead of asking, "How are you?" and they say, "Fine," then you dig deeper and go, "What kind of fine are we talking about? Is it fine as in steady and good, or is it fine as in holding it together?" And I even make a joke with my team. I go, "Is it fine as in we're all good, or is it fine as I'm about to jump off this cliff, Christian, and I'm about to take everybody with me?" And they end up laughing, but it helps me to figure out with them where are they at emotionally, mentally with the team, and then it allows me to have an opportunity for understanding. And so when you think about emotions really are the messengers, and they're not inconveniences. And don't shoot the messenger. A lot of times when our employees and we're seeing this behavior, we just want to shut it down and go, "I don't have time for this." No, we need to make time for this because, and the reason why I say we need to make time for this is because your other employees are paying attention to how you deal with your most difficult employee. They do. They understand your level of emotional intelligence by how you deal with the most challenging employee. That also is going to guide them in how they deal with one another when things get tough. And so just ask yourself, what is the emotion that you're seeing with your employee telling you about them, about your team? What need or value is being challenged? What do they require instead of whatever it is? So being mindful of that makes a huge difference. And then your third N is normalize. Normalize creating psychological safety. And so sometimes for us in different generations, it can be hard. Again, some of us were taught, you come into work, it's all about business, and we don't deal with emotions, and you just swallow it with a bitter pill, and you go home and cry at night if you have to, but you do not talk about it in the workplace. And again, what I'm saying is you do need to create a space for vulnerability with no repercussions when that employee says, "I'm having a difficult time." Now, if it's seriously impacting performance, if they've done something to violate a policy, that's something totally different. But when I say that there are no repercussions, what I mean is that the employee is not going to hear 3 weeks later, a month later, 6 months later, "Hey, remember when you were upset about so and so? This is why we're not now giving you the project because you don't know how to handle the stress." And it's like, wow, I had a bad moment, shared it with you, and now I'm being penalized for it. You don't want them to think and feel that way. And so that's why it's important to really be mindful how we communicate and how we interact with our employees and what does psychological safety look like. It looks like instead of telling someone to calm down, get it together. Instead of saying that, you're saying, "You know what? Tell me what feels intense to you right now. What is making you upset?" Instead of saying, "I can't believe you have done this and I can't believe this is happening," instead say, "You know what? Tell me how I can help you get through this. How can I help you through this?" You demonstrating empathy is not that you're in agreement with their behavior, with their outburst, or anything like that. You demonstrating empathy is really about you showing understanding and grace for their humanity. It's you being a leader who normalize these emotional expressions and building a resilient team by showing them how to manage when these emotions do rise. When you do that, again, trust, collaboration, all those things thrive. So, first up, when we look at what to do to prevent burnout with your staff, vulnerability. Talk openly about it as a shared human experience and not a weakness. Say to them, "I've noticed we're all running on empty. Let's talk about what's draining us and how can we reset." Create the vulnerability by sharing even your own challenges. Again, You don't have to go into great detail, but you can say, you know what? We have all been working a lot of hours. Even for my own family, I've been coming home late. Here is what I'm doing instead. Here is what I think we each should do. And share that with them so that they know they are not alone. Acknowledging your own stress and uncertainty demonstrates even your own humanity, not as a weakness, but again, as someone that they can relate to. And so that's how, when you look at trying to have employees overcome challenges, having them overcome stress, you do so through curiosity, you do so through empathy. And so step two is doing a team energy audit. That's when you ask, what tasks are draining, what inspires them. You look for patterns. I love step two because, I borrowed it from Franklin Covey, Stephen Covey with his, excuse me, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he talks about diagnosing before you prescribe. And that means just getting clear on exactly what are those tasks. As a leader, I know you can say, well, Krishna, I already know. Yes, you may already know, but allow your employees the opportunity to just get it off of their chest, off of their mind, and say it to you. Also, you may be surprised. It may be part of what you know, but there may be some other task or something else behind the scenes that you don't know about. For example, if they're going through stress at home, if they're going through a divorce, if they're having difficulties with one of their children, if a loved one or taking care of an aging parent, there's sometimes other things going on that again comes into work, but you won't know that unless you do your team an energy audit and check in with your team. Also, with your team, just know sometimes it comes from unclear priorities and broken systems, and it's not just about effort. So that's why it's important to just spend time talking to them and asking them and saying to them, being totally transparent. And I do this with my staff, and leaders who have tried this have come back to me and have said, Krishna, you're right, it is a game changer. And that is why I share with them, you know what? I don't do your job every day. You do this job day in and day out. Yes, I have 30 years of HR experience in different organizations, but life has changed since the pandemic. Life is changing on a day to day basis. You are in the trenches doing it. So you tell me what you need. You tell me how I can support you. You tell me how I can be of service to you. And the relief that I see on my employees when they go, whew, I'm not in it by myself. And Krishna didn't come and tell me that I was wrong or that there was something wrong with me. And neither did she assume that she knew all the answers and just dump it on me. I make them an active part in even the diagnosis of what's wrong. It's okay. Tell me what it is that you're feeling in these different things. Again, the task, engage them. Step three, simplify the expectations. Once you know what the tasks are that's draining them and the clients are, if there's a certain client that's being difficult, devise ways to remove the chaos. I shared this with one of the leaders, one of my clients, and she reported back to me and said, Krishna, wow, it made a big difference. So she had an employee. She noticed that they were making mistakes that they didn't make before, that they were really being abrupt with people. And so when she sat down and talked with the employee, she realized that the employee had three of the most difficult customers out of the customer service team. And she was like, Krishna, I did not realize that she had three of my most difficult customers. And they weren't difficult because they were always yelling, but because the expectations and, the high demand and etc. And so she said, I had to take, and now she only has one instead of three. And I split that up with, two other people and said, no, each one of you should have one. It shouldn't just fall on this one person. That Krishna, wow, the load just came off of her and she's actually smiling again. But she would have missed that. She said, if I didn't have that conversation with her about, doing the check in and then simplifying it, thinking about how you can remove the chaos. So even though she was good with dealing with escalations and demanding customers, it did not mean the employee wanted to do it all the time. And she felt like she was doing it all the time, which was causing her this exhaustion. And so that's why it's important whenever you can to rotate those emotionally heavy duties, and protect our focus time. So that way, that young lady was able to go back to things and start doing things that she really loved to do as a part of her job and not just put out fires. I mean, if you think about it, firemen do not put out fires every single day. They don't. Thank God they don't. Um, but also when things get tough for that fire department, they bring in another fire department to help them put out the big blazes. Again, it's about protecting and not stretching even our own fire company thin. And so we have to do the same thing in our business. How do we protect our employees and not stretch them thin? And so the way you do that is again that rotation of those emotionally heavy duties and giving them opportunities to restore their energy and not just keep them in this fight and flight mode.
Krishna, you have
Yeah.
about 8 minutes left, and then 8 minutes left. So we should get to questions pretty soon if you can.
Yes. And so when I look at step 4, it's about reigniting and thank you, recovering. And so reignite that motivation by returning to the mission, asking what inspires your employees, help them stay connected to the purpose, that connects them to the people, and that revives also morale. And not only that, just remember recovery is not indulgence, it's a necessity, it's essential. Encourage rest whenever possible. If you can do flexible schedules, such as oh, well, Friday, summer Fridays, some organizations have, or quiet decompression. I know of one organization that created a quiet room for their employees to go to on their emotionally heavy days. It was a closet that they emptied out. They put 2 chairs in, they put some calm music, they put nice scents in there, and they were amazed about how many times employees were in there using it to relax and decompress. And then step 5, just remember to reflect, reframe, and restore. And that's for yourself as a leader. Reflect on your own emotions, reframe the experiences that are difficult for yourself and for others. So that way it just creates awareness, and shifts their perspectives. And just the restoration of replenishing your own energy. Be in the mode of being able to teach to learn. And so that's what I'm hoping that you have gotten out of this. I know it's a lot of information, but I think a lot of it is some things that you already knew. And I was just giving you a reminder. And so I'm hoping that you can just teach to learn in regards, teach other people, help them to understand, help your team to understand how this shows up in them, give them some suggestions. And whenever you can, use subject matter experts. Bring in someone neutral, third party to help your team through this process, because you sometimes need to sit in learning mode with them so that they know that you are in this together as a team, and it's not just it's not just them, let's just say. So through your team building events, messaging, things like that, but use a neutral third party person. Again, I commend the nonprofit help desk for bringing me in, um, because again, there are some true benefits to that. And my final takeaway for you is just remember, productivity is not the opposite of rest. It's the result of it. When you feel rested, renewed, recharged, refocused, re-energized, how much more productive you are. Protect your team's energy, your organization's energy, as fiercely as you protect your mission's outcomes. Just remember, when leaders lead with emotional and generational intelligence, purpose turns back into power and burnout becomes resilience. So, I am at the end. I know there are some questions. I did say I have a gift for you. So, I know this was a lot of information for you. I hope you enjoyed it though. But my mama told me, don't you ever come to anyone's house without a gift as a thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. If you have enjoyed the presentation, go to LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll ask for you to do a testimonial. You do a testimonial, and for thanking you for doing that testimonial, my gift to you is a 30-minute laser coaching session on whatever the challenges are that you have been facing. So you can pick a topic, and pick my brain, and you can have one, two, or three of your managers there. And for 30 minutes, I'm going to give you the best I got with how you can resolve the problems, the challenges, whatever you have before you. So let's get to the questions. What questions are
Krishna, this was fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to have you leave that up for a sec. Actually, if you don't mind, just going to the next slide. I want everyone to do a quick scan because we want to hear all of your feedback, just like Krishna is suggesting that you have your own that you do to get from your staff as well. So be sure to scan that. Ina's going to put that link also in the chat. While everyone is scanning that first survey, the questions that we got, first of all, is are we going to post the slides and the recording of this? Yes, absolutely. Everything comes to you on our website. We will follow up with an email also with this survey again and with links to the slides and recording. We always record all of our sessions and you can find them within a week or so on nphd.org. Krishna, the other question that I'm seeing is what if your burnout comes from your leadership? What if this isn't about managing down, but rather managing up? How does that change the advice, or does it?
So it changes it a little bit because, of course, you have to be mindful in regards to how you present it to your leadership team. So, one of the ways that I usually find the safest way, and I say safest so that way it doesn't come across as sometimes our leaders can be challenging. Let's just say that. And so, one of the ways that I recommend is that you engage leadership in the conversation of sharing with them, hey, there seems to be, and maybe you haven't yet heard this, but there seems to be employees across all levels are feeling whatever they're feeling burned out, they're feeling stress. What do you think as a senior what do you think we can do as a leadership team to make things better? You have to present it as the we can do and not what you can do. So that way it's not like you're pointing fingers and blaming them. I'll be honest, with senior leaders, it's their baby. They've been in the organization, when you look at senior leaders, 20, 30 years, and they take everything. Some of them take everything personally. So to keep them as much as you can out of that feeling like there's a personal attack on them, their management style, etc., you do the we framing. How can we, make changes? And then you can say that as they give some suggestions, um, do you have the opportunity, or do you think the rest of the executive team would be willing to um, support this and maybe do something different in order to help our employees through? And so that's the mindset that it has to become, is a we thing and not a you thing, for them to adapt it and go, we're doing this for the employees. Okay, I'm going to go ahead because I'm a senior leader and I'm going to do this to help them, but it's really helping that senior
Makes so
leader.
much sense. Krishna, would you mind going back a slide? Everyone would like to see your contact information again. I shouldn't have taken that away from everyone. So go ahead and pop that back up if anyone wants to take a screenshot of that. Also, of course, you can reach out to us if you have questions. I have one more question. The energy audit, what format does that come in? Is it casual? Is it a survey? What's the most effective way to do that?
Make it casual. Thank you. That's a great question. Another question was a great question as well. Make it casual. That way you have your employees guard down. If they feel as though it's very formal, they also come with that comes with the fear of, I'm going to be penalized if I speak my truth. So when I say make it casual, the energy audit can happen during a staff meeting. Hey, I know we got this big project coming up, but we just finished this big project. I know it was very stressful. What can we do differently? How are y'all feeling? I know it was difficult. Talk to me. Let's just take a couple of minutes and just tell me what you're feeling. Let's just get it off our chest because, whew, we went through a lot. And that's also the time where you give them some acknowledgement and celebration. I want to thank you. I know it wasn't easy. We wouldn't have gotten through it without you. And man, did it make a difference. But I also know it came at a cost. So this is a safe space. let's go around the room and everybody just share a little bit about, what was difficult and what you think maybe any ideas and suggestions on how we can make sure it doesn't happen again or how we can reduce it. That's how you do that audit. So do it in a non-formal way as much as you can. Build it into that, building into your team building sessions, build it into your messaging when you're sending out emails to your team. Just weave it in so that way it becomes a part of them feeling truly safe with coming to you or sharing with you when they are feeling a certain way. And you want them to get to the point where you don't have to do the audit for them to voluntarily say, I'm having a difficult time right now, and it's slow today. And can I leave at noon because whew, I'm spent today. You need them to be that honest with you, and for you to go, you know
Yeah.
what? I can't have you leave at noon, but you could leave at 2 o'clock. Does that help?
Yeah. Krishna, thank you. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been excellent advice. We love having you all here, and keep an eye out. We've got so many more workshops coming up within the next many, many weeks. So stay in touch. Keep joining us. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me.